Welcome to Section 13.2, Part 2. This is the 144th session of the CISSP exam prep series. This part digs deeper into the specific factors and secrets you use to prove identity. In this session, we'll get concrete about the tools of authentication. We'll answer several questions. How can location itself become a security signal? What is the something you know factor? And why are passwords so weak? What makes a strong password policy? What do the leading authorities recommend? What is the something you have factor? And how does the something you are factor use biometrics? Why does this matter beyond the exam? Because you make authentication choices for real people every week. Imagine rolling out access for a distributed sales team that logs in from airports, hotels, and home offices. Some of your controls will lean on where they are, some on what they remember, and some on what they carry or who they physically are. Knowing the strengths and weak spots of each lets you build a login that is both secure and livable. How can location itself become a security signal? Location adds attributes that back up the main factors. One is somewhere you are, which ties a login to a specific place, an IP address, or a phone number from caller identification. Its flip side is powerful for catching fraud. If a user normally signs in from Virginia Beach and a login suddenly appears from overseas, the system can block it even with the right password. It is not perfect though, since an attacker can route through a virtual private network to fake the source. Picture a card that only works at your usual coffee shop and refuses a charge from another continent. What is context-aware authentication? And what is something you do? Context-aware authentication checks several signals at once, common in mobile device management. It weighs the user's location, the time of day, and the specific device before allowing a normal login to proceed. If all the conditions fit, the user continues with their username and password. There is also a lighter idea called something you do, like tracing a pattern across a grid or swiping across a chosen picture to unlock a screen. Think of it as a secret handshake your fingers perform. What is the something you know factor, and why are passwords so weak? The classic example is the password, a static string you memorize. Passwords are the weakest form of authentication for a stack of reasons. Easy ones are simple to guess, hard ones get written down, and users share them or forget them. Attackers steal them by watching, sniffing networks, or dumping databases, especially when passwords travel in clear text or sit in exposed storage. And they fall to attacks like brute force guessing, dictionaries, password spraying, and credential stuffing. Treat a lone password like a house key hidden under the doormat. How do you make a memorized secret stronger? You reach for a passphrase. A passphrase is a longer string that carries personal meaning, like a short sentence about earning your certification. Run together without spaces if the system rejects them. It is easy to remember yet hard for a brute force tool to crack, and it steers users away from predictable choices like the word password or a simple number run. Personal identification numbers also live in this factor, typically 4, 6, or 8 digits. A passphrase is like a full lyric, only you would think of far tougher than a single word. What makes a strong password policy? Organizations write a password policy and enforce it with technical settings. Maximum age forces a periodic change, sometimes called expiration. Complexity sets how many character types are required, from lowercase and uppercase to numbers and symbols. Length sets the minimum number of characters, and longer is always harder to crack. Minimum age blocks changing a password again too soon, and history remembers past passwords so users cannot cycle back to an old favorite. Together, minimum age and history stop someone from rotating straight back to the password they started with. What do the leading authorities recommend for passwords? Guidance is shifting, and two sources stand out with different advice. The first, from the National Standards Institute, breaks with older habits. It says hash every password and never store or send it in clear text. It says stop forcing routine expiration, since users just bump a number and gain nothing. It drops mandatory special characters, lets people paste from a password manager, allows all characters including spaces, and asks for a length from 8 up to 64. It also says screen new passwords against lists of common ones. The second source, the payment card security standard, is stricter. It expires passwords at least every 90 days, requires at least 12 characters, demands both letters and numbers, and blocks reuse of the last four. When you must meet a standard, follow at least its minimums. What is the something you have factor? This factor is a physical object you carry, and it shines when paired with another factor for multi-factor authentication. A smart card is a badge-sized card with an embedded chip, often holding a microprocessor and certificates used for encryption or digital signatures. It is tamper-resistant and a tidy way to carry complex keys. But because cards can be swapped or shared, you usually add a personal identification number or password alongside it. Think of the card as a key fob that only truly works once you also punch in your code. How do authenticator tokens generate one-time passwords? An authenticator is a device or app that produces a short one-time password, and a matching server always knows the current value. You typically enter your username and password, then add the number from the authenticator, giving multi-factor strength. There are two flavors. A time-based one changes the code every so often and depends on the device and server sharing a synchronized clock, so it is called synchronous. A counter-based one uses an incrementing counter instead of a clock and only advances when you press a button, so it is called asynchronous. The catch is real-world fragility, since a dead battery, a break, or a lost device locks you out. Why has text message two-step verification fallen out of favor? Sending a one-time code by text message is better than a password alone, but the Standards Institute has deprecated it for federal use. Phones show text on the lock screen, so a stolen device hands the code straight to a thief. Worse, an attacker can trick a mobile carrier into redirecting your messages, sometimes through fraud that hijacks your subscriber identity module card. Picture a mailbox with no lock where anyone glancing over can read your one-time codes. How does the something you are factor use biometrics? Biometrics measure physical traits and can serve as identification, authentication, or both, though they never provide authorization or accountability. Used for identification, the system searches your offered pattern against a whole database of enrolled users. Used for authentication, it does a one-to-one match against the single stored pattern for the identity you claim. So one mode asks, "Who is this?" and the other asks, "Are you really who you say?" It is the difference between scanning a crowd for a face and confirming the one face at the turnstile. What are the main physiological biometric methods? Several traits get measured, each with its own trade-offs. Fingerprints read the unique loops, halls, and ridge details on a finger and show up everywhere, from laptops to security keys. Face scans map the geometry of a face to unlock devices or screen people at borders. Retina scans read the blood vessels at the back of the eye and are the most accurate, but they can reveal medical conditions and demand you get very close. Iris scans read the colored ring around the pupil, nearly as accurate and workable from a distance, though a sharp photo can sometimes fool them. Palm scans use infrared light to read vein patterns in the hand, and voice recognition matches the print of your speaking voice. Just do not confuse voice recognition, which tells one speaker from another, with speech recognition, which turns anyone's words into text. So let's bring it together. Location signals like somewhere you are, context-aware checks, and something you do all reinforce the main factors. Something you know covers passwords, passphrases, and personal identification numbers, hardened by sound policy and modern guidance. Something you have covers smart cards and authenticator tokens, while text message codes have lost their shine. Something you are covers biometrics, from fingerprints and faces to retinas, irises, palms, and voice. Understand each factor's strength and its weak spot, and you can design authentication that actually fits the people using it. The MCQs covering all the topics and concepts from this session are available on rucloud.com. Practice the chapter-specific MCQs before moving on to the next session. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions or feedback, post a comment below or email us. I will see you in the next session.